A Chaos Emerald? You've got to be kidding me, guys. This is like taking candy from a baby, which is fine by me. Which is fine by me. Which is fine by me.
So hello once again from the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. Now, today we are talking about Sonic the Hedgehog and the politics of Sonic the Hedgehog. And it seems maybe quite bizarre to some people that would even be talking about politics when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog. I guess we're talking about the politics of Sonic the Hedgehog, but also the politicization of Sonic the Hedgehog by both the right and the left. And as we're going to see, the right's politicization of Sonic the Hedgehog is just really strange and seemingly doesn't make much sense. But a Sonic community having a strong leftist element does make more sense. You read about the original themes of the early Sonic games, and of course, SEGA as a company and their record towards LGBT rights, which is actually fairly decent, especially for a company in Japan. So today what I wanted to do is just talk about all of this, talk about how Sonic has got a reputation for being edgy, and where did that even come from in the first place. We're going to talk about how the Sonic movie was used as a tool by the right in the culture war, basically saying, well, isn't this Sonic movie great because it's so non-woke and stuff like that? And then we're going to talk about why Sonic appeals to left-wing people and why it has like a strong LGBT community within the Sonic fandom as a whole, and just how that came about. But before we go any further, please like the video, and in the comments, I guess my question for today is, what is the most weird thing you think has been politicized? I would say for me, it's probably this year with the Minions being shown as like non-woke, and just how ridiculous that sentiment is. Let me know down in the comments, is there anything worse than the Minions? Also, check me out on social media at the Kavernacle, on Twitter, on Instagram. Instagram is where I'm posting a lot about my travels, and if you care about that even more, please check out my Instagram page. I'm posting what I've been doing to my story, also in my highlight reels. And if you care about that even more, on my Patreon, I am posting a video per country I visited. The one about North Vietnam is currently up right now for all patrons. I'm gonna film the ones about Cambodia, South Vietnam, Thailand in the future. So if you care about that stuff, check out the Patreon page. I'm trying to build up as many $1 to $3 patrons as possible, the benefits of which are also getting access to my Nintendo Switch friend code and the Discord server. Also check out my second channel and the subreddit in the description. So before we go any further, I guess I should talk about my relationship with the Sonic the Hedgehog games and entertainment as a whole. So I guess for me personally, I never had Sega consoles. My cousin did have like Sega Saturn and stuff, and whatever console played Sonic. So I had actually played like the original Sonic games, but for me personally, he wasn't a big part of my childhood, really. I do remember playing, I think it was Sonic Adventure DX on the GameCube, and I actually really liked that game. And I remember also watching the animated show. I couldn't tell you which one it was, but it used to be shown on whatever cartoon station I used to watch. So I do remember liking Sonic a fair bit. And also I remember liking Shadow the Hedgehog,
Which is fine by me.
And now I know obviously that the Sonic community and just gamers as a whole really hate that game. But I liked it as a kid. I liked playing as Shadow, like having these guns. You could drive the Jeep around the first level, shoot the soldiers and shoot the aliens. I found that really appealing. So I guess I was the demographic Sega was looking for. A like maybe older kid who thought guns and, I don't know, weird console mascots made a good combination. But I did genuinely like that game as a kid. And as a kid, we all like bad games to a certain extent. But generally, I haven't really cared about Sonic throughout my life. Like, I like Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. I definitely liked the 2008 one as a kid, one of my favorite DS games. But yeah, didn't really care about Sonic that much. Didn't really like playing him in like Super Smash Bros. Or other games like that. But I will say, they've pulled me back in. I did buy Sonic Frontiers. I actually bought it for the Switch, the worst version apparently. And I'm really enjoying it. Of course, the graphics of the Switch are not good. If you're going to play it on the Switch, I'd recommend put it in docked mode, play it on a nice monitor or TV, and cap it on the Switch settings at 720p. For me, it looks really good. And can we just talk about the soundtrack in this game? It's absolutely 10 out of 10. I was not expecting this, and it covers everything. It's got this really nice, like, ambient music for the first stage. And then it's got this really cool lo-fi track for fishing with Biggs the cat. And then it's got some insane, like, Metal Gear Rising style boss battle with this crazy rock music. it just hits all the notes for me, and I just love it so much because it's so ridiculous. But I'm so enjoying this game. Like, I'm really enjoying how Sonic handles. I'm really enjoying the open world. And despite people complaining about all like the rails just in the sky, when you're playing it, you're going so fast, I don't think you really care. So generally, I'm really enjoying this game. I would say it's one of my favorite games of the year. And hot take, not saying anything about the quality, I'm actually preferring it to Elden Ring. And the only reason I make that comparison is because both are clearly inspired by Breath of the Wild. But as someone who's playing Breath of the Wild again, a lot of my enjoyment of that game doesn't come from just battling enemies. And in Elden Ring, I felt like that's pretty much all you do. Where in Sonic and Zelda, there's a lot of exploration and other fun things you can do on top of that. So maybe that's why I'm just enjoying this more. But if there's one takeaway from this video, Sonic Frontiers is better than Elden Ring. Now, let's go into the right-wing politicization before we delve into the left-wing one, which makes a bit more sense. So in terms of the right-wing politicization of Sonic, you guys might think they might be attracted to this like edgelord meme humor using Sonic, but it's not really that. It's basically all around the Sonic movie. Now, of course, when the Sonic movie first had its trailer, the design for Sonic was like really bizarre. People found it pretty freaky. And basically, because of all the backlash, the creators took it back and said, we're gonna actually rework Sonic's design and we're gonna delay the movie. And everyone was like, oh, they're great. They're for the fans. They love the fans so much. So then they did that. And then they released the movie and people generally liked it. It's a children's movie, of course, so it's not the most complex thing ever, but people actually liked this movie. It did fairly well at the box office. They liked the new design. Now, anti-SJWs cannot resist a good culture war, and you guys would have seen this Tim Pool thumbnail about Sonic making feminists furious and just how ridiculous this is. Basically what happened is there was a DC movie called The Birds of Prey, and we made a whole video about this, and it released at basically the exact same time as Sonic, and it starred Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. It was like a female-led superhero movie, Ewan McGregor playing Black Mask, of course more geared towards like teenagers and adults. Sonic was geared towards children, but basically they constructed a narrative that Birds of Prey did bad at the box office and Sonic did well because Sonic cared about the fans. It didn't make it political or feminist, where Birds of Prey failed because it hated the fans and it made it feminist. So just taking a few clips from my old video, here is a montage of anti-SJWs talking about this garbage where they're acting like Sonic's success at the box office is not due to it being a very popular video game character having a movie and it's designed towards children. It's actually because it's anti-woke and it's for the fans. So have a look at these clips.
And we are seeing some really weird tactics being deployed by the SJWs to do whatever they can to tear down this movie because they're so butthurt over the fact that Birds of Prey did not do well in its opening weekend, and they are terrified of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Actually seen the movie myself, saw it on Valentine's Day alone, and I really enjoyed it. So they left the door wide open and Sonic just ran right through them. In fact, you've had these Birds of Prey fans, fanatics really on social media trying to do damage control for the movie.
We're talking about Birds of Prey. We're going to give our review of Sonic, but this is what we got to start with because this is very important. Check this out. From Cosmic Book News, Birds of Prey fans sabotaging Sonic the Hedgehog. This is legit. but I'll tell you why. It's very simple. Forbes. The success of the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie shows that Hollywood needs to listen to gamers.
Boom.
Heavens.
Because gamers, they don't mess around.
And look at
they
this.
have a high quality of stuff they like to play.
Well, they're the customers, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Check this story out. A Birds of Prey hashtag is trending with solid reasons to support Harley Quinn's movie.
Not only were people sick of all this feminist girl power anti-male BS in the movie, but also another bigger name and better picture and a more entertaining project was on its way to release 1 week after Birds. I'm of course talking about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I think we can all easily see why this movie was on track to knock down Harley Quinn and the Birds from their tenuous top spot at the box office. Pro-SJW feminist fans of Birds of Prey, they saw this coming early on too, and that's why they tried to slander Sonic preemptively online, calling the film offensive, bigoted, and just making stuff up in order to try and turn people away from that movie, because now more people just want to see Sonic because of that baloney. And also, there's just not that many Birds of Prey fans out there to begin.
So that is obviously, as I say, creating a fan fiction of reality where they're acting like the success of one thing directly correlates to the failure of another thing. They did this as well with the Lightyear movie versus Minions. At least I can understand that to some extent because they're two children's movies. I don't think the crossover of the potential audience between Birds of Prey and Sonic the Hedgehog. Was that great? So there's various other reasons you can explain the success and failures. I wouldn't say people were flocking to Sonic because they wanted an anti-woke, anti-feminist movie, so it's ridiculous I'd even say this. But don't worry, even though there wasn't another, like, supposedly feminist movie coming out at the same time as the second Sonic the Hedgehog movie, they actually did this again, because Sonic the Hedgehog 2, it's for the fans, and it's also not putting any woke nonsense and woke BS. But now let's get into an article by the Federalist praising the second Sonic the Hedgehog movie just for being like non-woke. So Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is blissfully free of politics and full of fun and nostalgia. It surprises me to write this as much as anyone. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is an exceptionally fun movie. Watching this film made me want to be 8 years old all over again. This film is fantastic, a nostalgic yet hip family fan project, which is the rare beast in Hollywood these days. The non-political family feature. Instead of forcing progressive BS into a kid's film, like when I tried to hide the vitamin in my dog's food, Paramount and the film's creative team let us bask in the total, colour-saturated coolness of it all. What a breath of fresh air the film is. What should interest culture and freedom lovers about these live-action Sonic the Hedgehog films is how they buck all the woke Hollywood trends. Instead of doing the current day thing by injecting a motherload of leftist social commentary, the Sonic the Hedgehog films are 100% focused on serving and enticing fans instead of mocking or belittling them. Shocker. This type of film is what parents are now begging Disney for, instead of the woke mush they insist on serving us. All people want are well-produced stories that raise up our favourite characters, bring us joy and curiosity, and make living life a much more enjoyable experience. It's not a lot to ask for, but nowadays, that sort of thing in Hollywood is a courageous act. So we're going to touch on Sonic the Hedgehog's like generally pro-environmental themes a bit later, but people let me know in the comments. Of course I haven't watched the Sonic the Hedgehog movies, but if you've watched them, please let me know, is there any subtext in it about the environment or about the general themes that the original Sonic games had in it? Because I'd be pretty curious. But I do find this really funny, just because he's acting like everyone is clamoring for a movie like Sonic the Hedgehog 2. We're all sick of the woke garbage. It's totally ruining all our stories. This is how fragile these people are. Like I said, they always just want their own politics to be confirmed when they watch their media, or even lately we've been talking about comedy a bit more. They just want something that says, well, your ideology is right, you're great for thinking it, or alternatively, with something like Sonic the Hedgehog, I'm not going to challenge anything about your ideology. It's just going to be a fun escape for the fans. So that is how Sonic has gotten wrapped up in the conservative culture war. Basically just seen as a non-woke or an anti-woke, anti-feminist icon because his films don't contain lots of political messaging. It seems like a really low bar, and it seems like they just adopted him. Then I was thinking, is there more to this? Is there an appeal from Sonic to the right wing? Now, the only thing I can think of, you guys might remember this if you have used Twitter for a couple of years, the Sonic Twitter account used to be pretty infamous for being quite edgy. It was quite funny, but it also was a bit edgy with its humor. Some stuff really hasn't aged well, and you're probably gonna be pretty shocked. Like, anti-trans jokes from the Sonic official Twitter account, it's very weird. It was funny sometimes when, like, Stephanie Sterling was giving Sonic games, like, bad reviews, and they're saying to them, like, the TV show is doing really well, we have a giant Sonic Colors poster here, you interested? After Stephanie Sterling gave Sonic Boom The Rise of Lyric a terrible review, and then was just like replying to Stephanie Sterling, showing their 4.5 they gave Sonic Colors. But then you do get genuinely funny stuff like this, like, remember when Sonic kissed the princess? Nope, never happened, nope, nope. When Mighty Number 9 came out after like so much turmoil, congrats on the launch at Mighty Number 9, it's better than nothing, and look at Sonic's smug face. But then you have really weird stuff like this. This may surprise you, but there are rumors going around saying you are a hedgehog, can you confirm? We actually identify as an attack helicopter, check your privilege. So it's just like so bizarre to see the official SEGA Sonic Twitter account making some sort of like edgelord anti-trans joke in 2016. Obviously at the time it did get a lot of backlash, but again, you're never going to get away with this type of thing today. So that is like kind of the only thing I could think of when I was thinking about why the right wing might be attracted to Sonic as some sort of meme. And the only thing that popped in my head was that joke and was that tweet, and how the Sonic Twitter account in like 2015, 2016 used to be pretty famous online for just being really edgy, and everyone just like absolutely loved it, but then they would also tweet stuff like that as well. But before we go into like the LGBT connection with Sonic and stuff, I thought we'd talk about the politics of Sonic. Because to a lot of people who may have never played a Sonic game, you pretty much think Sonic is like Mario, like the story is not there. They're just like fun platform games, and in the case of Sonic, a lot of them are like more focused on speed and stuff. But if you actually played the Sonic game, or you've read any of the Sonic lore, it is actually way more complex and oftentimes way more serious than Mario or Crash Bandicoot or any of these like 1990s console mascots which used to be so popular. So let's talk a bit about the politics of Sonic the Hedgehog. Again, I know that sounds weird to say, but there are themes in terms of the environment and like industrialization. So let's read a couple things and discuss it. So a post on moynat.net. There's more politics in Sonic than you thought, central theme of which was environmental protection. The fact that Sonic the Hedgehog really raises this topic was told about 10 years ago by Yuji Naka, who I think recently went to prison for insider trading, a programmer who was actively involved in creating the first game about the blue hedgehog. Even then, the villain Dr. Robotnik was invented, whom Naka called a collective image of people whose activities negatively affect nature. In 1991, this became a sore subject, and although I had my own opinion on the issue, I did not publicly express it. In Sonic the Hedgehog, I managed to express thoughts in a different way, which I did with the help of Robotnik, which pollutes the environment and contributes to its degradation. And of course, this quote comes from Yuji Naka. The context surrounding like the early 90s is interesting as well and what influenced him. So society has always been concerned about the protection of nature, and in 1992, a year after the release of the first Sonic the Hedgehog game, the Earth Summit was held, where several important declarations and agreements were signed by delegates of the UN member states. The motto of this conference is "Our last chance to save the planet." 3 years earlier, George H.W. Bush, who called himself the environmental president, came to power in the US, doing things like the Clean Air Act, signed the Energy Efficiency Act, and launched a global change research program. At the same time in Japan, the team within the walls of SEGA was trying to figure out how to repeat the success of Nintendo. Mario had gained insane popularity, games with his participation were sold in huge numbers and contributed to the growth of console sales. SEGA needed not only cool games for their Genesis console, but also a memorable mascot. Alex Kidd from the game of the same name was not considered since he looks like Mario, and the Genesis didn't take off in Japan, so Sega tried to conquer the American market by directly comparing its platform with its competitor from Nintendo in advertising. But the mascot was created primarily for an American audience. The team came up with several images, one of which was drawn by designer Naoto Oshima. The same blue hedgehog turned out. According to Oshima, he even went on vacation to New York and showed images of the characters to random people in Central Park. The hedgehog seemed to everyone the most interesting option. Design alone was indispensable. It was necessary to explain who Sonic is and what he does, and since the care of nature had become the #1 topic in the US, it seemed logical to make a game about an animal that saves other animals and defeats an unpleasant person and his technology. And the central idea of the game was the confrontation between nature and destructive technologies. On the one hand, there are powerful enemies who are engaged in scientific research and do not respect flora and fauna. On the other hand, the opposition, which is far from being strong at its first glance, but really wants to save the planet. In the process of playing through the early games of the series, it is not difficult to notice the theme of protecting nature. Sonic fights only robots, and as soon as they die, normal animals appear in their place, fleeing. Especially a lot of representatives of the fauna are released from the cages after each victory over Robotnik. The levels get darker and darker. The first parts begin in the green and blooming Green Hill Zone and ends in the industrial scrap Brain Zone, where there is no greenery anymore. Only red lights on buildings in the background, smoke from factory pipes, and water polluted with waste. In Sonic the Hedgehog 2, there are more locations, so they're able to reveal the theme better. Already in the second chapter, we get to a chemical plant. In the middle of the game, we explore an area called the Ocean of Oil, and the story ends with the cutest scene with a flock of bald eagles flying after Sonic and Tails. By the way, bald eagles, which Robotnik used as a source of energy for his inventions, are the national birds of the US and only live in North America. Coincidence? I don't think so. Tom Kalinske, former CEO of SEGA America, argued to Vice that developers weren't forced to follow trends. I have always allowed our teams to do what they love, what they have a soul for. All involved in these games were environmentalists. I tried to remain politically neutral when I was in charge of SEGA, but I always supported the desire of the teams to do what they felt was right. I think today these games can teach a lot. So a lot of anti-SJW types get really butthurt when you talk about politics and stuff that is seemingly not political. Like I said, to a lot of people, Sonic seems like Crash Bandicoot. Sonic seems like Mario. The Mario games don't really say anything, so Sonic games must not say anything. But Sonic has had loads of comics, TV shows, and like it was even saying there, the context in which Sonic was created and him being marketed to a more environmentally conscious American audience was important in the themes of the game. And because this game wasn't really like narrative driven, it was more like stage driven, level driven. The thematic thing is about environmentalism, and you see like this guy like Eggman who represents like industrialization, corporatism, and Sonic as a hedgehog is fighting back against that. It's quite simple, but I did find it really interesting that even the CEO of SEGA was saying that most of the people who created the original Sonic games were big on the environment, and he didn't try to stop them putting those messages in the game itself. So Sonic has always had an environmentalist message, and although environmentalism isn't exclusively left-wing, it feels like these days it is something that only the left-wing care about, especially because it ties nicely with anti-capitalism. Since the advent of modern capitalism and industrialization, the climate has been rapidly warming. You cannot divorce the two from each other. So inherently, Sonic does have messaging that is more appealing to the left wing, so it makes more sense. But now let's go into the LGBT community and Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, of course, you guys probably saw this article going around a couple years ago, and I don't really want to talk about it, but it did drive anti-SJWs absolutely crazy, and it was called Why We Think Sonic Should and Will Be Gay. Basically, in the article, they were giving really basic arguments about why Sonic should be a gay character. Not that I have any problem with it, but this article did kind of seem like it was just written to cause controversy, because the arguments weren't very thought out. But actually going into it myself, I've actually found more interesting arguments about Sonic. The main one being he's probably asexual, and this is also suggested by someone who actually developed Sonic in the first place, because he only really cares about friendships. He doesn't really put much emphasis on romantic relationships, apart from in Sonic 06, where he is interested in a human woman.
Which is fine by me.
But like the Sonic Twitter account was saying, I guess that didn't even really happen. But why Sonic inherently attracts like the LGBT community? Because SEGA is a rare example of a company in Japan that is very pro-LGBT, and it is commendable what it's been doing. And it actually doesn't just say it like most companies, like changing their logos to rainbows and stuff. It actually tries to do stuff as well. So let's get into that. So back in 2019, they actually posted on one of their SEGA Twitter accounts a picture of Sonic and the gang flying through the air, and Sonic is holding a rainbow flag, and it says, "Never look back, have no regrets. Happy International Day against homophobia, biphobia, intersexism, and transphobia. Every day we stand with all of our LGBTIQ+ friends and family, but today we wave the pride flag a little bit harder in celebration of diversity." So this is back in 2021, and it says, "Pride Month is much more than a celebration. It's a time to honor and recognize our wonderful LGBTQ+ colleagues and communities around the world. SEGA is celebrating Pride this year with several staff-led initiatives like a Twitch fundraising campaign for an LGBTQ+ charity, and through conversations about inclusion and matters that are important to us as a company, our staff, and our diverse community we serve." Now, this was followed up this year by another thing they did. So the Gamer reporting, SEGA surpasses goal and raises £17,000 for trans charity Mermaids. So this smashed its own goal of £15,000, and Mermaids is a charity dedicated to helping transgender, non-binary, and gender diverse children, as well as young people and their families, and it was founded in 1995. And in 2022, they put out a similar statement to the last one, and they just talked about how they were working with Mermaids to raise money through Twitch streams. And it's nice to see that this is staff-led, and it's nice to see they're listening to members of their own staff to do this, so it doesn't seem so out of touch. And it's not just like corporate pink washing. They actually seem like they do care about making some sort of change in this. And another article from 2021, SEGA takes a stand against conservatism in Tokyo and sponsors LGBT+ Pride Parade. Tokyo's Rainbow Pride event aims at a society that can live positively without discrimination or prejudice. We are supporting the event again. But that is something interesting I didn't really know before I started researching this topic. So it's no wonder that people in that community feel better about supporting SEGA properties when some of those properties like Sonic have a more left-leaning message, but in the company itself, especially recently, have dedicated themselves to actually helping LGBT people as a whole. And like the article was saying, that is pretty rare for a massive Japanese corporation too. So now let's get into the overall community, and the best place to look, I think, is the Sonic subreddit itself. Now, just like the Splatoon subreddit, I feel as far as gaming subreddits go, Sonic and Splatoon are actually pretty good and not very toxic and just seem to be like quite fun. And people can tell me if you're like a big member in that community, it seems more like a place where you can post pro-LGBT like art and fan art. If we go through it, there's lots of posts throughout the years. Here's one with 200 upvotes of Sonic with a trans flag. Here's another one of Sonic and Tails wearing trans rights are human rights shirts. Another one with Sonic holding the trans flag for Trans Visibility Day. Talk about Matthew Mercer, who's the voice of SBO the Chameleon, saying trans rights. But now we have to get into some subreddit drama, and this made me laugh so much. And it actually got the subreddit more brigaded by bigots because they're just trying to like annoy them. So basically they had the logo changed for Pride Month, and some people were asking, you know, when are you going to change it back? We want the old logo. And this is one of the mods' responses. So they said, hey guys, we heard your complaints about the old icon. So change the icon. Pride Month ended a while ago. Okay, here you go. And it's Sonic bursting through a ring, but the background is a trans flag. This got 10,600 upvotes. And they pinned a comment. We keep the Pride background because we don't believe in using it as a tool to gain brownie points for looking progressive. Pride doesn't end when the calendar changes from June to July. We just want to have a place for young people to know that they are safe to be themselves. I don't want them to have to seek out specific places to get the heart of their identities and these issues. I want them to be able to feel safe in these places that combine their interests. The icon is an incredibly fast way to denote that. It doesn't change anything about the subreddit, but it's just something that can quickly relay you are welcome here. And I do love how memeable Sonic is through all like his art and stuff. So I love his face here. Upset about a pride flag. God, you're pathetic. And this got 5,000 upvotes about 2 weeks ago. So having lurked in that subreddit for the past couple weeks, it does seem to be a place that's generally pretty positive and generally pro-LGBT. That doesn't come without any controversy. There are people in the community who are annoyed at them posting this flag and stuff. And because these posts went so viral and got popular, you know, I saw it on subreddit drama, a lot of people did flood in there starting to say anti-LGBT stuff. So the mod team actually clarified with a post that said, the Sonic the Hedgehog icon, why LGBT visibility matters. So we often get folks asking why we use an LGBT themed Sonic subreddit icon beyond Pride Month. The issue came to a head when we posted a meme poking fun at the bigots who are upset with us for promoting LGBT visibility, quickly becoming our subreddit's #1 post of all time. We had to lock the post due to the wave of bigots infesting the comment section. First and foremost, the reason why we use this icon year round is to make it abundantly clear we are supportive of and welcoming to LGBT Sonic fans. A pride icon immediately sends this message. This is especially important given the reality that many Sonic fans, having inherited their bigotry from their parents or social circles, will attack others for being gay or sharing LGBT Sonic fan art. Our support for the LGBT community does not end with Pride Month, which is why the icon doesn't change either. So this all relates to the subreddit icon, as LGBT individuals are still to this day the victims of oppression, up to and including violence. We have decided to use our platform to send the simple message that we support the LGBT community. We want those from all backgrounds to feel open and welcome here. At the end of the day, we are all fans of Sonic, a hero who stands against oppression. The sharing of LGBT fan art, discussions of LGBT headcanons, and the promotion of other Sonic LGBT content will be openly encouraged, and the icon sends a swift message to those who may have experienced bullying in other communities that we will accept them with open arms. If you don't like it, you are free to leave. So very based there from the mod team at the Sonic subreddit. And why I like that so much is obviously not only them taking a principled stand, but I like it so much that the mods of this subreddit can actually do something like that, and most of the subreddit won't go away. So I think it says a lot about the Sonic fandom that they are generally supportive of this stuff, which makes absolute sense considering that the company that makes Sonic are also supportive of this stuff, and Sonic generally has left-leaning political themes, especially in like the comics and anime, but also in the original games. So all of that stuff makes a lot more sense than right-wing conservatives seemingly loving Sonic just because one of his movies, in their opinion, is anti-woke. So that's why it makes absolutely no sense that the right wing have tried to adopt movie Sonic for their culture war crusade, actually a crusade that goes directly against the staff of SEGA itself, who do all these campaigns, who do all these Twitch streams to raise money for the LGBT community, and just generally goes against the messaging of the Sonic games. So in general, as someone who is now a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog because I like Sonic Frontiers so much, I'm happy that generally the community is so positive, and the community, at least on Reddit, has really made itself like a safe space for everyone. And also, like, I've been watching loads of Sonic YouTube videos and watching loads of Sonic reviews lately as well, and just generally everyone seems to be like really positive. And I know most Sonic games aren't actually good, and I think Sonic fans will be the first to tell you that as well. But I'm just happy for people who like this stuff. They're not facing a toxic community if you want to engage in talking about this stuff. And it's just so hilarious to see the right wing try and act like both Sonic is non-political and actually bizarrely Sonic is anti-woke. But I just thought it was an interesting video because you see two sides of the political spectrum trying to claim Sonic as their own. The leftist side of the political spectrum, it actually makes total sense. For the conservative side, it makes absolutely no sense, and it's just absolutely hilarious and bizarre they're trying to adopt Sonic as a mascot for anti-wokeness. Anyway, that is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.